Welcome to this rigorous scientific lecture on radiative cooling nanocoatings. Today we're going to explore one of the most fascinating breakthroughs in thermal management, materials that can cool themselves below ambient temperature even under direct sunlight. Let me start by posing a fundamental question. Is it physically possible to cool an object below the ambient air temperature without any electricity or refrigeration cycle, even when the sun is directly shining on it? At first, this sounds like it violates thermodynamics. But it's actually not only possible, it's been demonstrated repeatedly in the laboratory and in real-world applications. The key lies in understanding spectral selectivity and exploiting a phenomenon called radiative heat transfer to the cold reservoir of outer space. To understand how this works, we need to start with an energy balance. Any object exposed to the sun has multiple channels for heat exchange. First, the object gains heat from absorbed solar radiation. The sun delivers approximately 1,000 watts per square meter at the Earth's surface under clear sky conditions. The object loses heat through three mechanisms: thermal radiation emission, convective heat transfer with air, and conductive heat transfer with whatever it's in contact with. The net heat flow is Q solar plus Q atmospheric minus Q radiative minus Q convective minus Q conductive. For an object to cool below ambient temperature, Q net must be negative. That means we must lose more heat than we gain. Now here's where spectral engineering becomes crucial. Solar radiation and thermal emission have very different spectral distributions. Let me show you this graphically. The solar spectrum peaks around 0.5 micrometers in the visible range. Objects at room temperature emit thermal radiation that peaks around 10 micrometers in the infrared. There's very little overlap. Solar energy is concentrated between 0.3 and 2.5 micrometers. This includes ultraviolet, visible, and near-infrared radiation. A surface at 300 Kelvin, which is about room temperature, emits primarily between 8 and 13 micrometers in the mid-infrared. This spectral separation is absolutely critical. It means we can engineer a surface to behave very differently in these two wavelength ranges. But there's another critical phenomenon we must consider. The atmosphere is not transparent at all wavelengths. Water vapor and carbon dioxide molecules in the atmosphere absorb infrared radiation strongly at many wavelengths. This is the greenhouse effect. However, there exists a crucial transparency window between approximately 8 and 13 micrometers, where the atmosphere is largely transparent to thermal radiation. Think of the atmosphere as a thick blanket with a hole in it. Wavelengths between 8 and 13 micrometers can pass through this hole and radiate directly to outer space, which is at approximately 3 Kelvin. This is extraordinary. We have access to a cold reservoir at 3 Kelvin, the cosmic microwave background temperature, right above our heads. Now we can state the design requirements for a perfect radiative cooling surface. First, the surface must have extremely high reflectance, ideally above 95%, across the entire solar spectrum from 0.3 to 2.5 micrometers. Second, the surface must have very high emissivity, approaching 1.0 in the atmospheric transparency window from 8 to 13 micrometers. This combination of properties is called spectral selectivity. The surface behaves completely differently depending on the wavelength of radiation. How do we achieve this? The answer lies in nanostructured photonic materials that are engineered at the nanometer scale. Let's do a quantitative calculation to see if this can actually work. I'll walk you through the numbers step by step. Let's assume clear sky conditions with solar irradiance of 1,000 watts per square meter at noon. Our engineered surface has 96% reflectance in the solar spectrum. That means only 4% is absorbed. The absorbed solar power is 0.04 times 1,000, which equals 40 watts per square meter. Now let's calculate the thermal emission. We use the Stefan-Boltzmann law, but we must account for the atmospheric radiation coming down. The net radiative heat loss is epsilon sigma times T surface to the fourth power minus T sky to the fourth power. For clear sky conditions, the effective sky temperature in the atmospheric window is approximately 250 Kelvin, much colder than the ambient 300 Kelvin. The Stefan-Boltzmann constant is 5.67 times 10 to the negative 8 watts per square meter Kelvin to the fourth power. Let's assume our surface is at ambient temperature, 300 Kelvin, and has emissivity 0.95 in the atmospheric window. Plugging in the numbers, Q radiative equals 0.95 times 5.67 times 10 to the negative 8 times 300 to the fourth minus 250 to the fourth. 300 to the fourth is 8.1 times 10 to the ninth. 250 to the fourth is 3.9 times 10 to the ninth. The difference is 4.2 times 10 to the ninth. This gives us approximately 226 watts per square meter. The net cooling power is 226 minus 40, which equals 186 watts per square meter. This is substantial cooling power. Now, I should mention, this calculation ignores convection with the air, which will reduce the net cooling, but it shows that radiative cooling is theoretically very powerful. So how do we actually fabricate a material with these remarkable spectral properties? Let me explain the material's science. One approach is to use multilayer dielectric stacks. By alternating layers of materials with different refractive indices, we can create photonic structures that reflect solar radiation. Another approach uses random nanoparticle composites. For example, silicon dioxide nanoparticles embedded in a polymer matrix. The multilayer approach uses many thin layers, each typically 100 to 200 nanometers thick. The total stack might have 10 to 20 layers. In the nanoparticle approach, particles sized around 200 to 500 nanometers strongly scatter visible and near-infrared light via me-scattering. The polymer matrix, often made of materials with polar bonds like PDMS or PMMA, provides the infrared emissivity in the 8 to 13 micrometer range. Often, a metallic backing layer such as silver is placed underneath to reflect any solar radiation that wasn't scattered by the nanoparticles. Now let's talk about real-world performance. What cooling has actually been demonstrated? A landmark Stanford study in 2014 demonstrated 5 degrees Celsius cooling below ambient temperature at solar noon under direct sunlight. A Colorado study in 2017 showed even more dramatic results, with 10 to 13 degrees Celsius cooling below ambient at night when there's no solar load. Commercial products based on this technology are now becoming available for passive building cooling and reducing air conditioning loads. Now let me ask a critical question. If we're cooling something below the ambient air temperature, why doesn't this violate the second law of thermodynamics? The answer is that the ambient air is not the coldest reservoir in the system. The actual cold reservoir is outer space at 3 Kelvin. Heat is flowing from hot to cold, from the 300 Kelvin surface to the 3 Kelvin cosmic background. Thermodynamics is perfectly satisfied. The key is that the atmosphere is partially transparent in the 8 to 13 micrometer window, allowing the surface to access this ultra-cold reservoir. Let's discuss some practical applications of this technology. Where can radiative cooling make a real impact? When applied to building roofs and walls, radiative cooling coatings can reduce air conditioning loads by 20 to 50% in hot climates. Applied to vehicles, these coatings can keep parked cars significantly cooler, improving comfort and reducing the initial cooling load when you start driving. By cooling surfaces below the dew point, these coatings can enable water collection from atmospheric moisture in arid regions. Interestingly, selective cooling coatings on solar panels can improve their efficiency by reducing operating temperature, since photovoltaic efficiency decreases at high temperatures. Of course, this technology has limitations. Let me be clear about the challenges. Cloud cover dramatically reduces the cooling effect because clouds emit thermal radiation back toward the surface. This technology works best in arid, clear sky climates. High humidity also reduces effectiveness because water vapor increases the atmospheric thermal emission in the 8 to 13 micrometer window. Dust, dirt, and biological growth can degrade the optical properties over time. Maintaining high solar reflectance requires keeping the surface clean. Currently, the cost of advanced radiative cooling coatings is higher than conventional white roof coatings, although this is improving with scale. Let me touch on some advanced topics. Recent research has explored directional selectivity, not just spectral selectivity. Surfaces facing the sky see the cold effective temperature of space, around 250 Kelvin. But surfaces facing the horizon see warmer temperatures. By engineering angle-dependent emissivity, we can maximize heat rejection toward the zenith, where the sky is coldest, while reducing emission toward the horizon. Achieving this requires sophisticated nanophotonic structures, often using photonic crystals or metamaterial designs that control emission angles. Angular selectivity could potentially improve cooling power by an additional 10 to 20% compared to isotropic emitters. How does radiative cooling compare to other passive cooling strategies? Let's put this in context. Traditional white paint reflects solar radiation well, but it doesn't have the selective infrared emissivity in the atmospheric window. Evaporative cooling can be very effective, but requires a water source and maintenance. It also increases humidity. Phase-change materials can store thermal energy but don't generate cooling, they just time-shift the cooling load. Radiative cooling is truly passive, requires no water, no electricity, and no maintenance beyond keeping the surface clean. What's next for this field? Where is the research heading? Researchers are developing dynamic surfaces that can tune their properties based on conditions. In winter, you might want to absorb solar heat rather than reflect it. Some groups are exploring integration with thermoelectric generators to convert the temperature difference into electricity. There's significant work on developing scalable, low-cost roll-to-roll manufacturing processes to make these coatings economically competitive. Different climate zones require different optimizations. A coating for Saudi Arabia should differ from one designed for Singapore. Let me dive deeper into the fundamental physics. How exactly do these nanostructures achieve spectral selectivity? The key is controlling resonances and the photonic density of states at different wavelengths. This is essentially antenna theory applied to thermal radiation. In the solar spectrum, the nanoparticle sizes are comparable to the wavelength. Geometric scattering dominates, providing high reflectance. In the thermal infrared, we're much larger than the wavelength. Here, material phonon resonances and polar bonds provide strong absorption and emission. The combination of geometric scattering in the visible and phonon resonances in the infrared creates the desired spectral profile. Let's think about the global impact. What if we deployed this technology widely? Buildings consume approximately 40% of total global energy, and a large fraction of that is for cooling in hot climates. HVAC systems account for roughly 15% of building energy consumption in developed countries, higher in hot climates. If radiative cooling coatings could reduce cooling loads by 30% on average across all buildings in hot climates, that's roughly 0.3 times 0.15 times 0.4, which equals about 1.8% of total global energy consumption. This would translate to several gigatons of carbon dioxide emissions reduction annually. It's a significant climate mitigation strategy. Are there fundamental physical limits to how much cooling we can achieve? Yes, there are. The Stefan-Boltzmann law sets the ultimate limit. Even with perfect spectral selectivity, the cooling power is bounded. The maximum cooling power is epsilon sigma times T ambient to the fourth minus T sky to the fourth, where epsilon is at most 1. For typical conditions with 300 Kelvin ambient and 250 Kelvin effective sky temperature, the maximum is about 240 watts per square meter. Real systems achieve 60 to 80% of this theoretical maximum due to non-ideal spectral properties and convective heat transfer. Let me summarize the key points from this lecture. Radiative cooling exploits the atmospheric transparency window between 8 and 13 micrometers to access the cold reservoir of outer space. Spectral selectivity, high solar reflectance combined with high infrared emissivity, is achieved through careful nanophotonic engineering. Subambient cooling of 5 to 10 degrees Celsius is achievable under favorable conditions with current technology. Widespread application in building cooling could result in gigatons of carbon dioxide emissions reductions globally. The technology is rapidly moving from laboratory demonstrations to commercial products and real-world deployment. Fundamentally, this represents a beautiful application of thermodynamics, photonics, and material science to address a critical global challenge.